Okay, this next slide is reminding us that before we get into our substantive testing of cash, we need to consider the impact of controls on cash. So with respect to cash controls, it's really made up of the controls over cash receipts and the controls over cash disbursements. Now, we talked about controls over cash receipts as part of the revenues process, and we talked over controls over cash disbursements as part of the purchases process, right? And in each of those sets of slides, chapter 10, chapter 11, it goes fairly into detail in terms of, for each assertion, here are the risks associated with these, here are good key controls to have, here are good ways for auditors to test them. So we're not going to spend much, actually really any time in this chapter talking through test of controls for cash receipts and cash disbursements should look like, because really those things are tested in conjunction with revenues and purchasing processes being tested. But once you test those, of course, the reliability of controls will impact how much you're going to do in terms of your substantive testing, right? We know this. CR impacts DR. In terms of substantive analytical procedures over cash, there's not a whole lot that we do. The main test that we do is this one, which is we just compare prior year cash balances with current year cash balances. Okay, so nothing terribly extreme there. And usually with cash accounts in particular, we're not seeing any crazy shifts in balances. There's not a ton of things moving around. Maybe if the company was in trouble and they're having issues with cash collections, you might see some movement there, but typically there's not a ton going on there. Another thing you could do is compare cash balances with budgeted amounts. It's not something I ever did in practice, so I wouldn't say it's common. I think this is really going to be your big analytical procedure with respect to cash. However, even though we're not doing a lot of analytical procedures in terms of cash, we of course did a ton of test of controls of cash in conjunction with our revenues and purchases testing like we just talked about. And we do lots and lots of tests of the entity's bank reconciliations, which we are going to talk through next. And those tests of bank reconciliations are going to include our cash account confirmations. Now we are going to talk through substantive tests of cash. So the first few slides are covering substantive tests of transactions. Again, I'm not going to spend too long on these because these are going to be basically test of controls. Okay? They're going to be done in conjunction with test of controls. They're going to be the duplication of what we've already seen. And the one, of course, exception we know is cutoff, because that is the one we saved to test at period end. Okay, so we're going to be looking at the last few days of the year and the first few days of the following year to make sure that cash receipts and cash disbursements are recorded in the correct period. I think we did talk about that though in the earlier chapters, because we talked about things like the importance of doing daily deposits and things like that.